Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambeau channel. The price of XRP has been falling this morning a fair bit. In fact, XRP reached as low as $2.20 just about an hour ago. At the time I'm recording this, just for reference, in case you're curious, I'll note, the time is 6:38 a.m. Central Time, which is my time zone here in the good old Midwest of the United States. It is Friday, October 17th, 2025, and it's the end of the world, apparently. It's apparently the end of the world. The entire crypto market's falling. And XRP holders, I'm told that we're in trouble. I've been told that we're in trouble. I mean, hop on social media. There's no shortage of people preaching that the sky is falling here. And so, look, just from one XRP community right here to another, you listening, I don't pretend to know for sure what's going to happen in the future, but I very genuinely believe it really does make sense to be optimistic at this point. And what you're seeing right now, this sentiment is not how market cycles end. That has never been the case in the history of the crypto asset class. Market cycles peak in euphoria as profits rotate from Bitcoin into large caps and mid caps and small caps, rinse and repeat. That's what happens. That is not what we're seeing right now. And I'm going to share with you perspective. In fact, what the thrust of this video, the reason that I was eager to hop on right this very second to record, because I was actually going to record a bit later in the day. The reason that I'm jumping right now is because there's such an awesome post from someone who I think is just one of the most insightful minds in all of crypto when it comes to analysis. And about an hour ago, just over an hour ago, I guess, he shared this post, which has already been widely seen. I think it's been seen something like 65,000 times in the last hour that it's been live. And it paints what I think is a realistic, but also happens to be a positive picture, indicating that the crypto market's going way higher. And you know what's best positioned, right? XRP. XRP has been showing tremendous strength within the crypto asset class ever since the November election. It turns out that once XRP is allowed to participate and compete in a level playing field, turns out that it doesn't need some sort of competitive advantage. It just wins. XRP just freaking dominates because XRP is functionally useful, and as long as the XRP continues to be useful, it's not going to be discarded, and people like the technical attributes that it offers. It does what Bitcoin simply cannot do, technologically speaking. Turns out that's actually highly desirable here. So yeah, fine. XRP down. Now we're at $2.28 as I record this video. The whole market had been down. Here, take a look at Bitcoin. Here, I'll hit refresh on this, but it's at 100... it's live coin watch, but that we can see the latest chart here. It's at $106,000. It reached as low as $104,000 just this morning, and that was just about an hour and 15 minutes ago. Yup. And look, and I had warned for the past week that there had been some analysts that I follow who had said, hey, look, in the short term, there's a real serious chance that you could see the market take a dip. But I've noted that none of those analysts who have been indicating that, and there have been enough that I noted that I mentioned on my channel in multiple videos now over the last week, none of those analysts who think that we might go lower in the short term, including the S&P 500, let's just say the stock market generally and crypto, none of them think that this indicates, even if we go lower, that the top is in for those markets. None of them. Here is a post from October 12th. This is from Tropic. This comes from by the guys that founded Swissblock and also Glassnode, two fantastic on-chain analytics firms. And they wrote here on October 12th, so it's 5 days ago. As long as the risk-off signal does not trigger, we are not in a structural breakdown. So he's saying here, okay, we're on a risk-on environment, and of course, stocks and crypto, those are risk-on assets. So if there's an appetite to take on risk when it comes to investing, that's where crypto thrives. That's where XRP thrives. And so he's saying here, as long as the risk-off signal doesn't trigger, we're actually sitting pretty. That's what he was citing here. And this was, 2 days after? Yeah, 2 days after the liquidation event on the scare of the tariff news and everything else, where the crypto market lost it's a $20 billion liquidation event, the biggest in history. So 2 days after, he's like, guys, the risk-off signal hasn't signaled. But I do have an update as of this morning. This is as of 5:04 a.m. Central Time. So just a little over an hour and a half ago. Said, our risk-off signal just triggered again. this is the start of the last leg down. He also noted, this is just a trigger that occurs when there is a potential for a fast, short time frame dip. And so I'm not pretending to know if that's over, but we certainly got that this morning because, again, that was 5:04 a.m., and you can see, you get up to around that point in time, XRP was around $2.23, and it already dipped a lot. I mean, if you're looking at the screen, you can see this. And it did, at least at the time I'm recording, it did hit its 24-hour low at 5:25 a.m., so just after he'd posted this. But is this the end of the world? Risk off? Well, no, actually. He also wrote, this is usually the case with the final move into major support. This is where shorts get trapped. This is not calling for a top. This is a major bottom in a fearful environment. And so this is just one example I wanted to highlight, but there are multiple on-chain analytics firms and just individual analysts that have been sharing similar messages, that this isn't the end of the world. Here's a post from Jordy Visser. And, I started following him. And this guy's, like, his entire career has been in traditional finance. Then he ultimately jumped into crypto. I've been following this guy for probably, I don't know, maybe close to half a year at this point. The reason that I came across him is because he now has a video that comes out every single Saturday on Anthony Pompliano's YouTube channel. And it is just fascinating. I watch it literally every single Saturday. I look forward to it. I think that Jordy Visser, and he's the reason that I'm jumping to it, nothing against Anthony, but other than he's a Bitcoin maximalist. Other than that, though, nothing against him. But Jordy's the reason he's just so damn insightful. And it's very fascinating. It can be about crypto, but certainly broader markets, artificial intelligence. And he's so data-driven. And I'm always attracted to analysts that are super data-driven and have thoughtful perspective, and they're willing to shift based on whatever the environment is, rather than being a perma-bull or a perma-bear, which he certainly is not. And so he had a post here where he was also putting out a warning, and this is just yesterday afternoon. He said, market setup is very bad right now for risk. And then he cited some additional stuff. For the sake of time, I'm not going to read the whole post on the screen here. But even so, he's not calling for the peak of the stock market for this cycle. He's not calling for the peak of crypto. I'm just sharing with you that there are people who have very long, successful careers in analysis in finance who are warning, yes, this is the case. So just because you see these things, and it is true, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. In fact, let's add some historical perspective. There's this post from Seth Golden, and right here you got the S&P 500 monthly performance by day since 1928, by the way. So this is the average performance for the S&P 500 since 1928. This is just amazing, for October. And he writes here, October ranks among choppiest month for equities. On average, October 26 marks the Q4 low for the S&P 500, while October 27th marks the Q4 low for the NASDAQ. And that's, of course, tech-heavy stock index. And he says here, late October dips typically set up powerful year-end rallies. Strong years heading into Q4 typically have stronger moves higher into year-end. And folks, the reason that happens, the reason that historically when you have a strong year heading into Q4, which we certainly have had, by the way, we're up, I checked a couple days ago, the stock, S&P 500 anyway, was up like 13% year to date. Well, you might think, well, wait a minute, are we getting ahead of ourselves then? I mean, we already had a, plus 23% gain last year? Well, it's got to peak somewhere, right? Well, I mean, yeah, eventually you're going to find a peak, fine. But you got to understand that strength begets strength. Like, when you got to understand, when you get into tremendous market strength, even if you're heading into overbought territory, that can persist for a very long time. So just because this is indeed the case here, it doesn't mean that you can't have an incredibly powerful Q4. That absolutely still can happen. And the reason I'm sharing all of this with you, even though I'm like you and my strongest interest in crypto, it is XRP. I am absolutely biased. It's my largest individual crypto holding by a lot. The last time I calculated, it's been a little while, but XRP made up about half of my crypto portfolio because it's performed so damn well. And I'm very happy for that. I'm glad that I'm glad it's performed so well, outperformed so much that now my crypto portfolio has been freaking lopsided for like most of the last year. That, yes, I'm absolutely thrilled for that. I would not like for it to be any other way, and I don't think we're done. But that's why I want to share this with you, the rest of the video. So it was this post from Julian Biddle. That's him right here on your screen. And he's the head of macro research at Global Macro Investor. So he's working with Raoul Pal, another rather insightful individual. And so Raoul Pal is the reason that I know about the importance of global M2 and how Bitcoin and thus the entire crypto asset class legs behind it and tracks it. And it has for over a decade at this point. Directionally, it's followed like almost 90% of the time. So that's as close as you're going to get to like one metric to rule them all. You know, that's as close as you're going to get to it, frankly. You could argue the business cycle, but those two are intertwined also. So it's like, we're splitting hairs here. But take a look at this post and stick with me through the rest of this video, because if you're having emotional trouble right now, you're going to feel a lot better by the end of this video. Please stick with me if you've got the time for this. It is going to be well worth it. I promise you. This guy is so data driven. He's driving an actual message that makes sense here. Level-headed here. It's not pie in the sky stuff. He's not saying bull stuff to just get the likes on the Twitters. Like that's not what he's doing here, folks. You know, when he thinks we're entering a bear market, you're going to see him flip. He's a very intellectually honest individual from what I've seen. I've been following him for a long time at this point, and he's going to say what he thinks. He's not a perma bull. He's not a perma bear. He's just wherever the data leads him, that's where it leads him. And so he wrote the following. I can see FinTwit, that's financial Twitter, of course, back to hurling insults at each other again, so I figured I'd share my view and try to be a voice of reason, even if I end up being wrong. It's my job to stick my neck out. I've been doing it for years, and I'm still here. For what it's worth, I think Bitcoin is forming another broadening wedge pattern, which is typically a bullish setup. And that's chart 1 as he labeled it, which is what's on your screen right here. So he's saying that what's happening right now is a bullish setup. And so within this broadening wedge, yeah, it's true. Right now, we're at the bottom of this, so it's not going to feel as good emotionally, is it? But it's going to feel pretty darn good if we get close to that upper end, isn't it? Isn't that funny how it goes? Whatever directionally is happening, like the typical lemming retail speculator, they feel things about it, and then they feel like that thing's going to persist forever. So they either end up in tremendous euphoria or tremendous fear. And it's just the silliest, and I know it's always going to be like that, but just as an observer, somebody who has been in this space in crypto for almost 8 full years now, and having observed this firsthand for that entire time, and just understanding fully that it's just human nature playing out over and over and over again, I don't know that it's ever going to stop being fascinating to me that that's my species. Like, we are this species, and this is how our species responds perpetually. On an individual level, yes, you can learn and you can change, but on the whole, just get a big sample size. That's our species. That's what's going to happen. Just the people investing, they feel the things. They're not, and then they make important financial decisions based on the feels. It's never going to stop being interesting to me. I mean, if after 8 years it still fascinates me, I don't know what's going to make that stop. Anyway, and then he says, we've seen plenty of these in the past, and right now we're testing the lower boundary of support. Another thing to note is that this bull market is officially 2 standard deviations oversold on the log regression channel. That's what this chart is. Just look. So again, of course, it's always going to feel the worst when you're at the lower end of whatever the boundary is. Then it's going to feel like pure euphoria when you get to the upper end. So what if you're 2 standard deviations above? Well, it doesn't make sense to feel these things, though. And I'm glad he actually ends up talking about that, too. We'll get to it. Anyway, his post continues. And by the way, again, he did post this morning. So at this point, I think it was 5:34 a.m. So now at the time I'm recording this, I'll show you the timestamp when we get down there, but I'm pretty sure it's 5:34 a.m. It's now 6:52 a.m. as I record this. A little over an hour ago, he posted this thing. Anyway, and then he says, unless the bull market is over, which is not our view, these levels are about as good an opportunity as you're going to get to add to this market. Also worth pointing out, Bitcoin's Bollinger Bands have only been this tight 3 other times in its entire history. Okay, pause here to just say 2 things. First of all, it will be the case if it ends up if it ends up being proven that we're not entering a bear market from here. This is not the top of the market. We haven't already seen the top of the market. We're not entering a bear market. People are going to look back on this moment and wish that they had bought when XRP was as cheap as $2.20 on October 17th, 2025. They're going to wish that they had bought Bitcoin when it was as cheap as $104,000 on October 17th, 2025. And they're going to wish that they had bought Ethereum. How low did this thing get? $3,689. People are going to wish they'd bought that, and so on and so forth. That's always what happens. But people just don't seem to have sufficient guts, the intestinal fortitude, to do what actually would benefit them when opportunities present themselves. And that's not universally true, but it is true for the typical lemming retail speculator. But as far as the Bollinger Bands, oh my God. If you've been following me for a while, especially throughout 2024, you are very familiar with this particular metric, because we talked about it a lot last year in the XRP community. Here's a post from April 16th, 2024. And the price of XRP was 49 cents. Charting guy wrote, XRP monthly Bollinger Bands are now the tightest they've ever been in history. 0.7 for the width. The tightest it got before this was 0.73 in 2017. 1 month before, and then he had a rocket ship emoji. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. I'm still getting over my sickness. Let me take a sip here. I always cough more as I'm healing. It's not unique to me, I'm aware, but it's not the fun part of the healing process. But anyway, so he had recognized that, and I remember covering that in April of last year. I was like, guys, tightest since right before the biggest bull run in XRP history, right? And then he updated that. This was July 13th of 2024. He said, this is a chart of the XRP monthly Bollinger Bands width. The Bollinger Bands continue to tighten. Back in April, the width broke the 2017 lowest low of 73 and was at 70. Today, a few months later, it's at 65. So just because we see this, it doesn't mean the big move happens that day or the next week or the next month, but it does mean that something's about to happen. You're talking about low volatility, and this metric indicates something big is going to happen, and the tighter it gets, the greater the burst you can finally expect. And it doesn't tell you directionally what's going to happen, whether it's up or down. But since we're in a bull market, I argued throughout all of last year, this thing's going to move to the upside. Okay, so what's happening right now? Well, he's talking about Bollinger Bands, but for Bitcoin, which leads the market. So if Bitcoin's going to surge to the upside, you know XRP and everything else is going to follow ultimately, right? The asset class moves in tandem. And so again, he says here, also worth pointing out, Bitcoin's Bollinger Bands have only been this tight 3 other times in its entire history. It's been around over 16 years, folks. What does that mean? We're in a mega low volatility environment. Right now, the bands are as tight as they were in September 2023, just before a 200% rally. That move lasted from September through March 2024, with a 20% correction in January, before prices rallied another 90%. The next chart shows the last 3 times Bitcoin's Bollinger Bandwidth was less than or equal to 22, along with the forward 12-month returns. And that's what the chart is on your screen here. And he does acknowledge the sample size is small, but he says, the results have been extremely positive. It's the classic beach ball underwater dynamic. The harder you push it down, the more explosive the move when it finally breaks free. All in all, we need to do better when times are tough. It's not just your hopes and dreams caught up in this trade, it's ours too. Financial Twitter can be powerful when you follow the right people who are genuinely trying to help. We're not gurus, but we've been doing this a long time, built comprehensive frameworks, and we're doing our best to share what we've learned. Okay, so I'll pause here to just echo that sentiment. That is absolutely true. I've said many times, you need to be very careful who you follow when it comes to analysis in crypto. Okay, and this is why I follow so many people, but there are people who I trust more than others. And as far as those who whose opinions I truly value and I follow on a regular basis, it's a small percentage of existing analysts. I'll tell you that. I don't know how many dozens, and it's tons. I don't know if it's It's a lot. I don't know what the number is. I should count it up one day. It's a lot of analysts, and I do follow them pretty regularly, some more closely than others. But most of them I've been following in a really long time, like most of them years. And so I know I can get a feel, without creating an Excel spreadsheet, I can get a feel for who's accurate and who's missing most of the time. And if I feel like somebody's missing most of the time, I'm not going to follow them regularly, right? And so what I found is with the group of analysts that I follow, if you treat each analyst as an individual data point and you track their perspectives, whatever that group that I follow thinks is probable, I've just found they're generally correct. Not 100% of the time, because sometimes improbable things happen. But when he says here, yeah, he's basically saying, who you will follow, it actually matters. Yes, please be careful. Please be careful about that. And so that's why I gravitate towards analysts like Julian Biddle here, who are super data-driven and insightful. It's very useful. You actually can get useful information from these people. And so that's why I love to collect this information I'm getting from all these brilliant minds, many of them truly brilliant minds. A lot of them doing this for careers, not all of them. But I love doing that and then sharing their findings here and giving them credit, sharing it on my channel. It's a lot of fun, and it makes sense to spread optimism, not just for the sake of it, but because it makes sense. I want to live in reality. If it makes sense to feel doom and gloom, like as much as that sucks, I'd still prefer to live in that world because at least that's reality. I want to live inside of whatever reality is. And I'm telling you right now, it's just my humble opinion. Well, not just mine, Julian's too, obviously. It makes sense to be very optimistic here. We are not entering a bear market. We don't know that for sure, but I don't think it's remotely probable. And so then he says, at the same time, there's a ton of poison and hate out there. Avoid it. When times get rough, we should rally around each other and stay focused on the big picture. This is a 70 vol asset. If it can't handle that level of volatility, this asset class might not be for you. If you don't believe in crypto and the life-changing tech it brings, it's hard to stomach the swings. And folks, that resonated with me so much the first time I read it. I mean, it does now too, of course. But it made me think back to why I'm here and why I've stayed in crypto for almost 8 years and why I've been holding XRP for almost 8 full years. Why I've sold 0 XRP in my entire life. Although I intend to. It's got to be for a much higher price though. But there's no secret to it. There's no secret to how Moon Lambo is able to stomach this. And all the volatility that's occurred for almost 8 years, never sold a single XRP. There's no secret. It's because I genuinely believe that XRP makes a ton of sense. I could not be more certain that XRP is functionally useful and it has become an early winner of the crypto space. I believe it does not make sense to question if XRP is going to make it because it already made it. We don't have to question it. It already happened. Now it's just a question of to what degree, what will the scale be if you fast forward? What percentage of the market will XRP dominate? How many trillions of dollars might XRP one day? These are fun conversations to have. But there is no secret to it. If you're having a hard time stomaching it, perhaps it's because you don't have that conviction. And if you don't, you decide what that means for you in terms of buying, selling, or holding. Maybe it just means do a whole lot more research and find out why people like me do have that conviction and have for the better part of a decade. I am not a fool. Let me tell you this. I came from good genetic material. My father was a literal genius. That doesn't mean that I am. But I'm not a damn fool here. Okay, I have a silly ass name, Moon Lambo. That's just because I have a playful personality. And it's good to maintain that throughout life, including throughout adulthood. That's healthy. But just because that's the case, don't think for a moment that I don't take this seriously, or that I'm just whimsically holding on to my XRP because reasons. No. I've thought through this long and hard. I've done my research. I could not be more confident that XRP is already one. It absolutely is here to stay. So I'm just saying, if you don't have that level of conviction, I encourage you to just keep researching and learning more, especially if you're brand new, in which case I completely understand. It's overwhelming when you jump into crypto. It took me... I didn't feel like I had even started to have even a reasonable handle until 6 months into being in crypto, having done research a minimum of at least 4 hours per day, because I was that just engaged with it, even from the get-go. But I feel like it probably took me about that long. It took me months to get to the point where I had a good enough understanding about XRP and even what Ripple was doing with it to where I could even write about it for my blog, which is now defunct. But you know, there's a lot of data out there, and I get that. So anyway, all that to say, if you are concerned here, there's no secret to it. It just, and let me say this too, being in, it does help. Like the more you see the volatility and you understand that the ups and downs, the price action in and of itself doesn't indicate that we're going up forever or that things are going to zero. Once you live through enough of that, it does make it easier. So there is something to just living through it. That's true too. But just understanding the usefulness of all this, frankly. And then Julian says, the only way to survive this kind of volatility is to extend your time horizon. When you think in days or weeks, every move feels like life or death. When you think in months or years, it all fades into noise. Once you stop fighting volatility and start embracing it as a feature of this space, everything changes. Volatility turns into opportunity. It's a gift that lets you add to your conviction. And it says, our view remains that Q4, once the dust settles, will be bullish. And we've done a ton of work to support that view. That's the best I can leave you with on days like this. Good luck out there. And so, yeah, I was right. It was 5:34 a.m. That's an excellent post. That's the reason I wanted to hop on here, sit behind the mic, and record this particular video this morning, because this is the message that I think everybody needs to hear, and I want to share this with you, my fellow XRP community. This is a great message to share. And if his suspicions end up being correct, or incorrect rather, and say we are entering a bear market and the bears are actually correct, okay, fine. But he's still got a great track record, and I think the overall message is the right one. You know, have some intestinal fortitude. Understand why you're here in crypto. Have some conviction. Have a really long time horizon. I keep insisting that's crucial. It's really not optional in crypto if you want to be successful. And of course, all that said, I'm in his camp. Not just because of what he wrote here, obviously, for tons of reasons I've been articulating on this channel for a long time. I don't think the top's in for crypto, for stocks, for XRP specifically. I do think the best is yet ahead, and I do not know that for sure. I could be wrong about that, in which case I'll openly acknowledge that. I'm not going to pretend like I didn't call that or try and say, well, that's not quite what I meant. No, it's like, I got that one wrong. I don't have an ego. That's fine. I'm wrong sometimes. But I'm just telling you my honest opinion. Like, this is what I think. And I think we're just going way, way, way higher than this. And I don't need to repeat all the reasons in this video. I just wanted to share this post and give some of his analysis and his thoughtful perspective and his calm approach to all of this. And the fact that he's highlighting so many of the messages that I keep emphasizing, when it's relevant to do so, which is frankly pretty consistently running this channel. It really is here. But like he said here, once you stop fighting volatility and start embracing it as a feature of the space, everything changes. Volatility turns into opportunity. It's a gift that lets you add to your conviction. Yeah, it's so true. Volatility is the purpose of investing. Let me say that again. Volatility is the purpose of investing. Without volatility, what are we even doing then? Just go buy stable coins otherwise. Go buy a bunch of stable coins, okay? Let me tell you, they'll stay worth $1 unless they depeg. Okay, but outside of that, they're going to be $1, right? That's not investing. But you got to take the good with the bad, and so in the most volatile asset class on the entire planet, yeah, you got to take the bad too. But again, I got to repeat, the fact that price goes down in and of itself is not an indicator that any individual asset is going to zero. Like, the price going down in and of itself is not necessarily an indicator that's the case. In fact, it almost never is. It almost never is. In case it's like a Luna Terra situation, fine, then it is. But outside of that, no, it's just volatility. Think about that. I mean, I lived through a 90% plus crash with XRP. After it peaked in January 2018, that son of a bitch, XRP crashed over 90%, and I was like, I'm going to buy more. And then it ran to $3.65 this year. So again, the price action in and of itself almost never indicates whether something's dead. It just doesn't. It flatly does not. So embrace it as a feature, treat it as an opportunity when price goes down if your conviction is genuine and if it is high. If you want to add to your position, that gives you an opportunity to do so. It's your call. But I'm just telling you, folks, this is not a time to be bearish. This is not a time to be fearful. The price already going up. Who knows what it is by the time you're watching this, though? It's like, you know, if you don't like the price right now, give it 5 seconds. Sometimes less. But XRP, $2.29 as I'm wrapping up this video. So thanks for hanging out. Let me know if you are bullish or bearish in the comments section below. Hopefully things are going to start heading back into the the positive sentiment. But right now, the market unquestionably, look at the crypto fear and greed index. I don't have it pulled up in this video, but my God, people are so fearful right now. And it's just my opinion, and I'm just one dude on the internet. But I'm telling you, folks, I do not think it makes the most logical sense to believe that what is most probable is that we move to the downside. That's just my personal opinion here. And as soon as we do start to see triggers popping off here, I will be telling you about them. Like top indicators, none of the top indicators have triggered for crypto. None of them. None of the ones, like even if you're just talking about what's tracked on CoinMarketCap, the 30 indicators, 0 have triggered. So this would be the first market cycle in history where none of them triggered and we saw a peak then. Do you really think that's remotely probable? I mean, I just don't. I really don't. I think XRP is going to blast into yet another new all-time high, finally enter its last parabolic leg for this market cycle, and I will not be surprised if those analysts calling for double-digit price action for XRP end up being correct. That will not surprise me. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't make price predictions, but I don't think any of that's crazy. I think it's perfectly reasonable to speculate about that for this market cycle. It's just you always see this fear. And as somebody who's been here for every single up and down in crypto for almost 8 years now, I'm telling you, this is not doomsday stuff here. It just isn't. This is just what happens. And it turns out people do need a consistent message, consistent reminders. That's the case. You can't just hear it once. All these general ideas that I've shared in this video, you can't just hear them once and be like, oh, okay, I'll never feel fear again in markets then. Like, that's not how humans work. You need the message again and again, and that's why I keep delivering it when I feel like it needs to be delivered, and this is one of those moments. That's why I made this video. So I hope you found this to be helpful and reassuring. I can't tell you what's right for you. I won't tell you whether you should buy or sell or hold. I don't know what's best for you individually here, and I'm not a financial guy myself. I'm an enthusiast just like the rest of you. I just have a really fun time running this YouTube channel. But I can tell you, it does not make sense to make important financial decisions based on emotions, especially not panic. You need to be calm, cool, and collected, and then whether it's buy, sell, or hold, whatever's best for you, go ahead and do that. But, be intentional about it, not emotional. Be thoughtful about it and data-driven. And regardless here, man, I'm just telling you, like, it's so obvious to me. It could not be more obvious. I mean, you got the United States on board in crypto for the first time in history. The war on crypto's over here. How could you not believe that the best is yet ahead? How could you not believe? It just doesn't even make sense. And XRP fundamentals, the greatest they've ever been in history. 13 plus years XRP's existed. The never stronger fundamentals. And you're not optimistic for the future? You sure? You don't want to rethink that a little bit? I would. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say, all right? That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.